So once upon a time, there was a young woman. Now, this is a story that I have shared before, but it goes with my talk, so I'm sharing it again. My apologies to those of you who have heard it. So once upon a time, there was a young woman, and this young woman was experiencing some significant challenges in her life. She did not know how she was going to make it, and she wanted to give up. She was tired of the fighting and the struggling, and it seemed as one problem was solved, a new one arose. And so she went to her father for comfort and support. And her father, who happened to be a chef, sat her down at the kitchen table, and he filled 3 pots with equal amounts of water, and he placed them each on a high fire. And soon the pots came to boil. In one he placed carrots. In another he placed eggs. And in the last pot he placed coffee, ground up coffee beans. He let them boil without saying a word. The daughter waited rather impatiently, as our daughters can do, and she was wondering what the heck he was doing. In about 20 minutes, he turned off the burners, and he fished the carrots out of the pot, and he placed them in a bowl. And he pulled the eggs out of the pot, and he placed them in a bowl. And then he ladled the coffee out of the pot, and he put it into a cup. Turning to her, he said, "What do you see?" "Well, carrots, eggs, and coffee," she replied. He brought her closer and asked her to taste the carrots. She did. They were soft, mushy, tasteless, in fact, pretty much ruined. They were very overcooked. Then he asked her to try an egg. After pulling out the shell, she bit into the very, very hard boiled egg. Also, not tasting very well, kind of inedible. And finally, he asked her to sip the coffee. She smiled as she tasted its rich flavor. Confused and perhaps more than a little annoyed at the time that had passed and the lack of comfort and support she felt her father was providing, she asked, "An interesting experiment, Dad, but what does this have to do with all of my problems and with me?" He explained that the carrots, the eggs, and the ground coffee beans each had faced the same severe adversity, boiling water, and yet each had reacted differently. The carrot went in strong and tough, but after being subjected to the boiling water, became weak, even mushy. The egg, which had been fragile to begin with, being held together just by a thin outer shell, after being boiled for 20 minutes, became hardened inside. The ground coffee beans, however, were unique. Even after they boiled for 20 minutes, they really did not change. They stayed true to what they were, but they changed the water. He went on to ask his daughter, "When adversity knocks on your door, how do you respond? Are you the carrot that seems strong and tough, but with pain and adversity you become wilted and soft? Do you lose your strength? Are you the egg, which starts off soft with a fluid center, but in the face of challenges becomes hardened inside? Your shell may look the same, but something inside is gone. Or are you like the coffee grounds? They did not change. They stayed true to what they were, and in the face of real adversity, they changed the world around them. They changed the water into coffee." He then said, "My darling daughter, the best comfort and advice I can give you is to be like the coffee bean. When things are at their worst, remember who you are, stay true to your nature, and you will change the world around you." It's sometimes tough to do, isn't it? This morning, we're going to look at how we can make sure that we experience life as a coffee bean. That's exciting. I know. And we do that by putting one foot in front of the other on our spiritual path, even when it seems like it isn't all good in the neighborhood, which is our theme, as Rich said, for this month. In other words, to keep on keeping on, and not to get discouraged along the way and get all mushy and wilted or become hardened inside, rather to remain steadfast in the truth of who we are, and that's truth with capital T. Our major principle for today is our spiritual unfoldment is gradual, sequential, and cumulative. I love the word cumulative. The spiritual unfoldment process often involves challenges, adversity, and even sometimes some pain. In fact, that seems to be what gets our attention the most, doesn't it, when we have a little something that happens. And we kind of explored that last week when pain wakes us up, or discomfort. In the process of realizing that our spiritual unfoldment is gradual, sequential, and cumulative, there are 3 ideas that I want us to think about this morning and explore. The first is, wherever we stop is where we end up. Isn't that profound? It's like wherever you go, there you are. Wherever we stop is where we end up. Giving up are not words in the vocabulary of those who succeed. The second is every experience we have in our lives has the opportunity to be a wake-up call. Okay? So, and the third is our most profound good comes when we hold fast to the truth, especially when we cannot see the immediate result. And we really like to see those results immediately, instantaneously. I know I do. So let's look at number 1. Wherever we stop is where we end up. Giving up are not words in the vocabulary of those who succeed. Consider these facts regarding people who would be considered successful in their chosen fields. Woody Allen flunked his motion picture production class at New York University. When Lucille Ball began studying to be an actress, she was told by the head instructor of her drama school, "Try another profession, dear. Any other profession." A Universal Pictures executive dismissed both Clint Eastwood and Burt Reynolds at the same time. To Burt Reynolds, he said, "You have no talent." And to Clint Eastwood, he said, "You have a chip on your tooth, and your Adam's apple sticks out way too far, and you talk too slowly." Okay. Malcolm Forbes, the late editor of in chief of the Forbes magazine, failed to make the staff of the school newspaper where he was an undergraduate student. It's amazing. The Beatles, I love this, were turned down by a recording company whose executive said, "We don't like their sound. Besides, guitar groups are on their way out." Really? Wilma Rudolph was the 20th of 22 children. Okay, I don't even want to think about her mother right now. She was born prematurely, and her survival was doubtful. When she was 4 years old, she contracted double pneumonia and scarlet fever, which left her with a paralyzed left leg, and she was able to walk only because of a metal brace attached to her leg. However, at age 9, she removed the metal leg brace and that she'd really been dependent upon and began to walk without it. And at 13, she decided she's going to become a runner. She entered a race and she came in last. For the next few years, every race she entered, she came in last. Everyone told her to quit, but she kept on running. One day, she actually won a race, and then another. And from then on, she won every race she entered. Eventually, this little girl who was told she would never walk again went on to win 3 Olympic medals, 3 Olympic gold medals. When Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, he tried over 2,000 experiments before he got it to work. I don't know that I would have that tenacity, to be honest. Okay, so when asked how it felt to fail so many times, he says, "I never failed once. I invented the light bulb. It just happens to be a 2,000-step process." "For a just man falleth 7 times and rises up again," is Proverbs 24:16. But the definition, the word in there that's important is the word just. What does just mean? Just means conforming to the spiritual law. So the man who's just, who conforms to the spiritual law, is the man that falleth 7 times and rises up again. Robert Schuller said, "When faced with a mountain, I will not quit. I will keep on striving until I climb over, find a pass through, tunnel underneath, or simply stay, and with God's help, turn my mountain into a miracle." Kind of reminds me of a song. Ain't no mountain high enough. Okay. Persistence and determination are the key. Here is an affirmation. I am not discouraged, I am persistent, and I move forward into my highest good. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence and determination. With God's rich help, I now persist into my highest good. And so, the key to keep on keeping on, being a coffee bean, is never quit. Never give up, because where you stop is where you stay. Did anybody ever see the movie, the Tim Allen spoof on the Star Trek movies, Galaxy Quest? I highly recommend it because it's a great spoof. Basically what happens is, and whenever I say never give up, I think of this, because these aliens, they think it's real. they've seen these broadcasts and they think these people are real and that they go out and save these civilizations. So they come to a convention and they come in and they want them to come help them save their dying star or whatever out there. And their theme is never give up, never surrender, never give up, never surrender. And they're trying to convince them that they really aren't who they think they are. But it's definitely worth watching. It's pretty funny. And I will add that surrender is one of those charged words, isn't it? I mean, we've been told never surrender, right? And as we sang the song this morning, surrendering to spirit, surrendering to our highest good is a good thing, because we know we're getting our bloated nothingness out of the way. We're getting our little selves out and allowing the big self to take over. But when we surrender to our fear or our negative belief, that's not so good. So on to number 2. Every experience we have in our lives has the opportunity to be a wake-up call. Wake up to what? To our true nature. To the true nature of the universe. Every experience has the opportunity to show us where we are out of alignment with the natural rhythm of harmony and life. Ernest Holmes says in the Science of Mind textbook, we should not despise apparent failures, the temporary chagrins of life, for they are salutary. And salutary means healthy, invigorating, good, helpful, advantageous. I looked these up because I'm thinking, what's he trying to say here? A lot of times Ernest Holmes didn't speak in plain English, right?
It was in the 1920s.
I know, 1926 here. Leading the soul to the inner Christ, the way, the truth, and the life. When the experience is complete, the lesson will be learned and we shall enter the paradise of contentment. I love that. You know, when they talk about heaven and hell being states of mind, I love the idea of the paradise of contentment. It just sounds wonderful. When we see that every experience we have had in the past and every one we're now having, whether we label them good or bad, when we can see that they have taken place for the purpose of making us conscious beings, and that we are that much closer to realizing what it means to be made in the image and likeness of God, we will continue whatever particular experience we are in over and over until you discover what it's telling us. Have you ever had that experience, kind of a deja vu? Here we go again. Why did I lose my checkbook again? You know, didn't this just happen last week? What is it I didn't learn? And I have to learn it again. And I've had that. And, you know, Suzanne has a wonderful affirmation that all of my lessons I learn with ease and grace instead of pain and suffering. I learn my lessons with ease and grace. It sounds like so much more fun.
But don't remind me that next time something happens. I'm kidding.
Oh, you've got your mom remind you. I have my children. I'll be in a situation and then my kids are feeding affirmations back to me. Well, Mom, that's not, you know, the truth, you know. Okay. So the more conscious we are, the more we're able to automatically produce harmony in the place of disease. Remember, gradual, sequential, and cumulative. Everything we're doing is building upon what we've already done, and everything that will be done is where we are now. It's wonderful. It's that upward spiral, to set in another way. So number 3, our most profound change comes when we hold fast to the truth, especially when we cannot see the results. This is the tough one. This is where trust and faith comes in. A mother reminds her young son to wash those icky germs off of his hands before dinner, right? The son comes in to the table and sits down at dinner time, and the mother says, "Let's thank Jesus for our food." And the son looks upset. And he says, "Mom, all you ever do is talk about Jesus and germs, and I've never seen either one of them." Oh. Isn't that the truth? I mean, really, talk about having faith. Trust in the unseen. I know sometimes we can get frustrated and discouraged when what we want, what we desire, what we pray for doesn't show up in the here and now. Man, we want it to happen. There's a powerful article that was in the Science of Mind magazine some time ago, and it was entitled, "When Prayer Doesn't," parentheses, "seem to work." And it was written by Dr. Jesse Jennings. He's an RSI, religious science, not RSI anymore, we're Creative Living Centers. But he was a religious science minister in Houston, Texas. And he wrote about what just might be going on when we've prayed, when we've done our affirmative prayers, when we've done our affirmations, and nothing seems to be happening in the physical world. The outcome, he says, isn't quite here yet, where our senses can register it, but it is forming even as we speak. Things move in cycles. Nature needs winter as much as summer. Summer can be likened to the demonstration and winter to the preparation for demonstrations. Trees actually grow more in the winter, underground where we cannot see the growth. The same is true of our symbolic winters, our times of silence, introspection, and apparent dormancy. When nothing seems to be happening, we can be confident that it is happening in the underground self. Did you know that it takes 5 years for the seed of a bamboo tree to show any growth above ground? 5 years it's working underground, right? And then it grows to the height of 90 feet in 6 weeks. It's pretty amazing. And so we work step by step, moment by moment in progression, in the unfoldment of good. We do not attain complete freedom in a single leap. It is gradual, sequential, and cumulative. Remember that God has given you mastery over everything. Stop letting anything have dominion over you. Nothing outside you can control you. Nothing is impossible for us because nothing is impossible for God. To quote Reverend Johnny Coleman, we must stand on our own big spiritual feet. Truth principles must become part of our lives. To put it simply, to keep on keeping on being that coffee bean, we have to stay aligned with God. Ernest Holmes tells us in The Science of Mind, when we separate ourselves from the divine fire, we become an isolated spark. I have talk about us being God sparks, right? And we all have that divine light, but we become, when we separate ourselves, we become an isolated spark. We are strong only when united with life. As soon as our consciousness is detached from spiritual wholeness, we can no longer draw from the inexhaustible reservoir of external existence, so we become exhausted. There is nothing to fall back upon. Life is one perfect wholeness. The universe is a unit. God is one. It is impossible for us to feel separated from the Spirit without feeling lost and in want. That subtle something which runs through all things, that life without which nothing can live, that power without which nothing can move, and that spirit without which nothing can be, is God. It is only as we live in conscious union with the Spirit and consciously let it work through us that we really live. Find all of that right there in The Science of Mind.
Yeah, when you explain it.
Yes.
I want to read it.
So today, let us keep on keeping on. Let us not stop on our quest to return to wholeness, because where we stop is where we end up. Let us allow every challenge that comes our way to serve as a wake-up call to greater awareness. And finally, and one of the greatest importance, let us remain steadfast and true to our alignment with the infinite source of all things. Remembering that with God, all things are possible. And so it is. Namaste.